From LALATE News headquarters in Santa Monica, this is Mornings LALATE.
It's a big morning of Mornings LA, direct and live from Santa Monica, California, with your fourth stimulus check update of 2021. In this recording this morning, we go over the breaking news of a recon deal. Yes, a recon will be happening. The incredible details in this morning recording is that a recon will be happening with a price tag of 1.75. And guess what? That a vote is happening as well. Yes, vote is happening. Nancy Pelosi represents that the vote will be going on the recon and the roads and bridges as early as the end of this week. I have the latest details. And then price tag 1.75. It's incredible great news as a major deal is hatched overnight for another program added. All the latest details on the programs in and programs out, but one program is making transformative news, as is the biggest program we've seen in the history of this channel going into the recon. Then we'll be going over to the exciting details of student loan debt. More debt could be forgiven, and this is as we wait for that COLA raise across the board coming as well. It's a big morning, and it's a big exciting day as the toast is toasted, the butter is buttering, the surf is up, I'm here, you're here, and the incredible news starts right now as a recon vote, a recon deal, and programs in, programs still going on in, all happening at the same time. Boy, what a jaw-dropping day it's going to be, and it starts right here, live from Santa Monica on Mornings LA. Good morning, everybody. I hope you're having a beautiful day. And boy, the weather is beautiful here in Southern California. And a deal is happening on the recon. I'll have the latest details in this breaking news report on Mornings live from Santa Monica. And the vote is happening as well. Yes, the voting and the bill all happening at the same time. There will be 0.75. So what programs are in and what programs are going out? I'll have the latest details across the board as we go into a jaw-dropping day as a transformative, generational, best program of nearly 20 years got in there yesterday. It's going to save you fortunes. I'm going to go over all the clusters of checks that pay you about $15,000 from this recon. Yes, that's $15,000 of checks across 3 clusters of checks. We'll be going over to also the executive order the president could still sign for student loan debt forgiveness. How much is it? It's coming up. And then the big money for COLA raise. It's going to be followed up with a 5th stimulus law right behind that. Oh boy, what a big morning. We're just getting started. The toast is toasting. The butter is buttering. The surf is up. And this is Mornings LA. Subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record, and 140 million views. America's most watched channel of its kind, delivering you the breaking details of all the big money in this incredible recon. Like this video and consider becoming a member. Coming up later today is Mornings Crypto at 10 a.m. live on air right after this video, and then noontime at 11 a.m. You don't want to miss those live shows coming up next, because I know you love the live shows. As you look at this recon, it'll pay viewers on average about $15,000 of checks. Those checks are across 3 clusters of programs that were passed in a Senate subcommittee no less than several weeks ago. Those programs initially at that time were $3.5 trillion price tag, now at 1.75, but it still amounts to about $15,000 of checks you're going to get from these different programs. I'm going to go over each of those checks and those programs first in overview right now. And the first cluster, every check survived. Hazard pay. They're going to do another year of the earned income tax credit for my essential workers. You're going to get that money. Then the $4,000 of elder checks will be coming to you if you take care of that in the elder person at home. Then similar money for if you take care of a young person at home. Then my college students, you're going to get $550 checks because the Pell's grant has been extended by additional $550 and also now made tax-free. Then if you live in a low-income community, there will be checks for repairing that home in a low-income community. They got money in there also for the CTC one more year. So the parents will get $3,600 or $3,000 checks split over 12 months as well. Then, if you want to purchase a new electric bike or a new electric car, checks for that as well. 15% for the purchase price of a new electric bike, $7,500 for the purchase price of a new electric car. Those big checks stemming back from the old law now continue for 10 years. There you go. That is the first of 3 clusters. Let's go over to the first add-on. The first add-on comes from Maxine Waters. She wanted to give you a $25,000 check for the purchase price of your new home. Your first-time home, it did not get in there. But the other check she wants to do got in there. Those other checks are for those home repairs. You just saw that first check in that first cluster. Let's go to the second cluster with that second home check. Yes, they got checks in there to weatherize your home. Then what else is in the second cluster? Let's look at it. Paid leave and medical leave. It's currently not in there. It was passed, but it's currently not in there. But there was reports it's going back in there. That would be up to $1,700 a week over at least 4 weeks. That is a lot of money, almost $5,000 of checks. Then they got money in there for pre-kindergarten, totally free checks, tuition-free community college out, and then they got money in there to weatherize your home. Definitely need to weatherize your home. Every time that Chris and Sinema comes knocking, say, it's not Halloween yet. It's next year. No, it's Mitch in disguise. There you go. Let's go to the second add-on of checks, and that got in there. These checks would go directly to the state and local, and then they would offer you the services for free. And what is that service? It's free home health care. If you're a senior or a person on disabilities, wow, this is huge. The federal government wanted to get it in there. President Biden wanted to get it in there, and Bob Casey wanted it $250 billion. It's going to be a little bit less. Again, it's free home health care if you're a senior or a person on disability. Let's go to the third cluster, checks, and let's see which of those survived and at what price point. And here we go. If you're new to this channel, if you're new to this recording, when I say in, I mean at the time of the recording. If I say out, it's at the time of the recording. The situation is very fluid, and the numbers are changing. Free school meals in. They got those in, and that would include also $65 checks per month per child when school's not going on. Then they got cheaper medication in there as well. They got immigration reform, more about that second. Farmers, I don't know. Free internet was passed, I don't know. Clean energy out. Workers' protection, also, like independent contractors, they passed that as well. I don't know if it survived. And then Medicare expansion, dental, vision, and hearing. Let's go over those details on air. So, a lot going on in that third cluster, obviously. The dental, vision, and hearing, at the moment, only the hearing is in there with payment to you for hearing aids under Medicare. Still pushes underway to give you checks of at least $850 as vouchers per year for vision, for dental, and then potentially something for vision. Those details coming up later in this video. I have a lot coming up. In the second half of this video, I will be going over the details of all these provisions, how you get these checks, how they pay out, who's the eligibility. It's coming up later in this video, so stay with me. A lot still happening. Immigration reform. I'm going to cover in this in a second as well. And now we turn to the third add-on, which is that MSC IRS monthly stimulus check. Again, this is not a provision yet in the recon. It is not yet in a draft of the recon, and is something they can add before the House vote or before the Senate vote. When you look at the provisions and when you look at what's happening in the second half of this video, you're going to get a better sense of what's going on. One video yesterday said it best, was saying, wait a second, how can you call a vote if the legislation's not done? I'll explain those details coming up in a second. But what's important to understand is that they can add it in before a House vote, even if it's not on the House bill, by a House amendment, or on the Senate side during a vote-a-rama before a Senate vote. You're going to see in the second half of this video that they're leaving a lot of stuff for the Senate side that's not yet finished. The senators may, for the first time that you're hearing on this recording, the channel in many, many months, they may send this to the Senate subcommittee before the Senate vote-a-rama because there is so much the senators are still adding in there, in addition to the potential MSC. Chuck Schumer's office tells Donnie last week he's adding in a monthly stimulus check. Donnie's wife was told the same thing by Chuck Schumer's office the week before. Debbie Applegate told by Chuck Schumer's office the week before that as well. And another viewer. Countless viewers have been told by Senators Coons, Casey, Warren, Wyden, Sanders that they're inserting a monthly stimulus check provision when it gets over to the Senate. That is why advocacy is so important, because later in this recording, you're going to see how senators advocated since Wednesday to get a game-changing, transformative, life-changing provision into the recon that was not yet in there. And that is why we have to advocate. Let's read that incredible message of advocacy, which comes from the chief of staff to the #1 guy in the recon. The message says they now have in total between congressional senators' offices received more contacts of advocacy from the LA Purple Power than the number of signatures in the American petition. So if you see a news report talking about the American petition, sort of scoff at it, because we have dwarfed that. We are far beyond that in the number of your phone calls, but you need to continue. They now have a better understanding of what Americans are going through than a bunch of signatures. Oh my goodness. They have heartbreaking stories and the voice of the people in you, LALATE, as you across the nation have become too loud to be ignored. Very, very kind. Let's read this last sentence together on air because it concerns you and me. Please continue your encouragement for the continued advocacy as the professional voice of the people you have become, LALATE, and push until this becomes law. Absolutely important, because you're seeing in the second half of this video that there's a lot of law still to go into the recon. So how can you have a vote if you still have more law going into the recon? I'll explain the details. It's brand new, it's new on mornings, and it's new on this channel starting today. But with that, we got a lot coming up in the second half of this video, and the excitement starts with that vote. Yes, a vote is happening. Nancy Pelosi represents that a vote on the recon could happen by the end of this week. That's the recon, not just the roads and bridges. I have the latest details. How they can do that if it's still being modified. A deal is happening. A deal will happen, and a deal has happened for a $1.75 trillion recon. And yet, to this day, people are still misquoting Joe Manchin's words. I had the latest details of why his words were exactly on point, because programs in and programs are out for 1 to 2 year programs, and that Joe Manchin caught something where people are trying to do 20, 30 year programs that would have paid $100, $200, $300 trillion, not 1.75. I have all those details as well. And in the second half of this video, we'll be going over the student loan debt forgiveness, and then we'll be getting over to the exciting details of that COLA raise. Boy, we are just getting started. You're going to hear a lot of breaking news as we go into the second half of this video. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds, but first, here's a little bit about the community page, about getting that money for rent and utilities. See you in 60 seconds. If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.la.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join LALATE Daily for the excitement of the new LALATE live daily. The excitement starts on Mornings LALATE at 9 a.m. Home LALATE returns at 11 a.m. daily. And then afternoons LALATE at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica on LALATE. And the excitement continues right now on Mornings LA, live from Santa Monica. I'm excited to deliver to you the breaking news as a deal and a vote happening at the same time. How could this happen? I'll explain what's going on. Voting will happen on the recon as early as later this week with a price tag of $1.75. What does this mean for you? Programs in, programs out. One of the biggest programs you have ever seen in the history of this channel. It took 20 years to get this done. It's now in there. And then a deal happening across the board. What will the deal encompass? I have the breaking details in this morning's broadcast. Then we'll be going over to the exciting details of student loan debt. More debt could be forgiven across the board. Whose debt is it? I have all those. And then that COLA raise. Boy, here we go with that COLA raise. Now get ready for fifth stimulus. It's right behind that as well. And with that, make sure you advocate. As Jennifer, who's on the live chat, I just saw her. She said, have you made the phone calls to advocate today? This is LALATE. So subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record. I want you part of this incredible family with the most comprehensive coverage of this recon. When third stimulus recon became law, people said stimulus check. No, I said focus on the 15,000 laws I can get you. Average viewer got $45,000. Coming up in the second half of this video, you're going to meet some more viewers who got big sums of money just last week from third stimulus. Yes, average payout about $45,000. As soon as fourth stimulus becomes law, I'm going to show you how to get $15,000 across all these clusters of checks. But first, let's go into the exciting details starting right now about what happened on that prescription medication deal. A major deal was revealed yesterday, and boy, is it huge. Let me explain what happened. Cheaper prescription medication will be coming to millions of Americans a lifetime because of a deal done yesterday. Let's back up. Medicare, when first established, allowed no ability for Medicare to negotiate prices of medication with the pharmaceutical companies. Whatever the pharmaceutical companies wanted to charge, Medicare would have to pay it. No ability to negotiate it. That was then pushed upon you. As a senior on Medicare, you had to pay exactly what the what the pharmaceutical companies wanted as a price point, and you couldn't have any step away from it. As Chuck Schumer said, millions of Americans could not afford medication because they couldn't pay the copay on it. So, what happened? On Wednesday, the president got the biggest achievement over the last few months, and unfortunately, someone in his press room really did not deliver the news of it. What happened? President Joe Biden on Wednesday night called Kristen Sinema, who has been the opponent to medication expansion of lower medication prices, on a Wednesday night, and got her to agree to expansive drops of the Medicare prescription medication prices across the board. This is huge. This is huge. Over the last few months, Kristen Sinema has blocked prescription medication prices from coming down. And by Wednesday morning, you only had in there Medicare Plan B cheaper prices. But Wednesday night, the president did it. Biden did it. He got Sinema on the phone, and he got her to agree across the board to broad, life-changing changes. Wednesday went into Thursday, and Thursday morning he announced to the American people a recon deal was done and made no mention of the prescription medication. Bad optics. What did he do? He didn't announce it because it was still being negotiated on. Should not have done that because people thought it wasn't in there, including Bernie Sanders, whose quotes I ran on this channel. From Thursday to Tuesday, legislators, I went over the names, the phone calls, who they called, negotiated for this provision to go in there, and yesterday they got it. For the first time in 20 years, Medicare can now negotiate cheaper prices for your medication. This is singularly the biggest deal of this recon I have ever recorded in this channel for many, many months. Let's go over the details of how big this is for my seniors on Medicare. The details of this deal are just jaw-dropping. Here's what it encompasses. It encompasses Medicare Part B, which includes insulin and diabetes medication, and Medicare Part B. It allows Medicare to negotiate the prices of medications, nearly 30 of them, through 2028, and would prevent the companies from raising the prices more than the benchmark of inflation 2021. And this is incredible. It'll allow also for continued negotiations, and the first time in the history of Medicare that they can negotiate for cheaper prices for the medication you buy. Some of this medication includes things like arthritis and cancer medication, which is part of Part B and D. Very, very expensive medication. Ron Wyden, by example, uses the insulin as a price point. It's now going to be a cap of $35, substantially lower. Ron Wyden says for the first time, government will no longer have its hands tied behind its back, and there will be signs of progress. It's some real wins for patients and consumers. And while Medicare will be cheaper, the biggest winner is you as a senior. You will no longer have to pay those prices, and the pharmaceutical companies can no longer stick it to you. Chuck Schumer said, "We heard from people across the country who had serious illnesses, could not afford their medicine. Today, we have massive step forward in helping alleviate the problem." This is where the American people are going. Chuck Schumer, in fact, also makes very clear that this is the starting point. They're going to come back and do this more next year as well and get it even more broader. Kristen Sinema praised the event. Dick Durbin praised the event and said this is a step in the right direction. Bernie Sanders says it needs to go a little bit further. But Scott Peters said no one is 100% perfect, but this is going to be great for seniors. Representative Jan Skowkowski out of Illinois said this is incredible considering how much money lobbyists spent for 20 years to prevent the event of yesterday ever happening. Ron Wyden says this will now put fortunes in the pockets of seniors who had to shell out big sums of copay for these medications across the board. And this is astronomical. Now, with that, we are part of a convoluted situation over the next few days because guess what? A vote is happening on the recon. But wait a second. As one viewer said brilliantly in one of the comments yesterday, how could they be voting on the recon if the situation is very fluid and the programs are still going in and out? For the first time in this recording on this channel, I'm going to explain the situation because it is a little confusing. For the first time, you're going to have the vote called on the recon, with the recon not yet finished, with programs still going in and out, and negotiations still underway. Why? You're going to see later in my commentary the exact quote from Bernie Sanders, but this is what they're talking about. They're basically saying that we have a benchmark now to call vote. If someone in the Democrats want to vote against something, vote against it. Otherwise, I'm going to call your bluff. Because certain people are saying, I'm not going to do it unless it's in there. I'm not going to do it unless it's out of there. And so they're starting to say, call the vote. Otherwise, I'm going to call your bluff. So it comes on point when we go to the next provisions, which are likely to go into the recon. Let's go over those details right now, and let's go over what the voting is about those provisions as well. Paid leave is potentially the next provision to go in as early as today. Paid leave, what is it? It's a lot of money. Paid leave is if you have to stay home to watch the birth of your first child. Paid medical leave, you have to stay home because your son broke his leg. How much does it pay? It pays a fortune. If you make $60,000 or more per year, it could be upwards of $1,700 a week. If you make $35,000 a year, it could be upwards of $800 a week. If you make $14,000 a year, it could be upwards of $400 a week. And we're talking about 4 to 12 weeks of this. So we're talking about, thousands and thousands of dollars in just a short period of time. So why is it not in? Everyone believes it needs to go in except one guy, Joe Manchin. He says it's too expensive for companies. But everyone's saying America must be globally competitive as corporate America is, because companies overseas in first world countries all have to do this. It is federal law in all foreign countries except here. Kristen Gillibrand and Patty Murray says this is the only developed nation where this is not offered, and it's behind the 8 ball. All right, the next provision that's likely to go in there is great news if you're in a big state. It's the cap on state and local tax deduction being removed. Very big if you're in New York, New Jersey, California, Florida, Texas. It's called SALT. Who's proposing this legislation? This is coming from Gothenheimer, who is that House moderate Democrat. So that brings us to the equation of vote happening. What's at issue? Just what I said a second ago. Let's go through each of these provisions one at a time, and I'm going to go over the immigration reform as well. Gothenheimer's group is called the Goth Gang, moderate Democrats, House. They say if the paid leave is not in there, they're voting against the recon. There's enough of them in the Goth Gang to block the recon in the House or not pass it. You cannot lose more than about 6 or 7 House Democrats on the recon. There's enough in the Goth Gang, if SALT is not in there, to block it. Do I think he's going to do it? I don't know. But that's why they're saying, I'm going to call your bluff. I want to call the vote on the recon to see if you really are going to go to that mat. Paid leave. There's enough people that say they'll vote against the paid leave. Do I think it's going to work? No, I don't think there's enough opponents to the exclusion of paid leave. Then comes the immigration reform, which is very exemplary of the situation right now. Immigration reform passed. In there? Yes, in there. And that immigration reform is polarizing among Democrats. There are more Democrats who want it out than Democrats who want it in. And that means that of those, more Democrats say they will vote against the recon if it's in there than Democrats who say they will vote against the recon if it isn't in there. Well, the Senate parliamentarian is expected to rule on that inclusion of that immigration reform as early as today or tomorrow, which may solve the situation. Then we go over to the Senate side, which makes this very, very interesting. You see that these negotiations have been unfolding with senators, yes. So the House members are deferring to the senators to do negotiations. What you're seeing is that a lot of senators have provisions to add, not particularly House members, senators. So that's why Nancy Jolopal, the progressives on the House side, said, call the vote on the roads and bridges this week, because if you want to add stuff, go ahead as senators want to add stuff. As House members, we're leaving it up to the senators to figure out what they want to do. Let's go over some of those quotes of those senators right now, and we'll understand the magnitude to which senators want to add stuff in there. Bernie Sanders on Thursday said it has major gaps, the recon. Ron Wyden, the senator, Democrat, Oregon, progressive, says the deal is not done until the Senate acts, and he says there's a significant amount of stuff to still do. Do on the Senate side? Yeah. Do on the House side? Not particularly so if you're a House member, because you're not in the Senate. Ron Wyden, the senators want to do stuff, then send it over to the Senate. Chris Coons says there could be dozens of proposals of changes. Jolopal says she's getting her phone lit up with senators making changes, proposing to make changes. AOC, the same thing. Debbie Stabenow indicates that there could be changes coming, and Chuck is dealing with the Senate parliamentarian this week. Senator Chris Murphy says that there will be changes coming. He's a Democratic senator as well. So, for the first time, let me explain something across the board, which is very, very new to this channel right in this video, which is traditionally, when you have the same party in control of the House and Senate, you don't send things to subcommittees on both sides. I had said over the last few months, it's in the House subcommittee. You don't need to send it to the Senate subcommittee. They're working together. But if you finish this out of the House, if it does go for a vote in the House, and it's finished on the House, it goes over to the Senate, and they look at it and they say, you know what, we got 30 things to do on the Senate side. We got a monthly stimulus check, we have paid leave, we have vision and dental, we have SALT, we have a lot of things to do. They may potentially, under Chuck Schumer's dominion, say, you know what, send to subcommittees. We got a lot to do. House passed something, but it is far from over, and the senators want to add a lot more. And until they add those things in there, we're not done yet. So you may see the senators under Chuck Schumer's guys go into subcommittee if Vote-A-Rama, the two-day event, is not enough. Remember, Vote-A-Rama is a time crunch event, 4 to 8 hours. And so if you have a lot to do, you may not want to leave it all for Vote-A-Rama. You may want it in the subcommittee on the Senate side, which is very beneficial to you. All right, now let's go over programs in and programs out and why broadcast media is just being horrible with their coverage of Joe Manchin. What are they reporting? Joe Manchin blocking, Joe Manchin no, Joe Manchin no. He didn't say that. What he did say is what I said, which is a big concern, and you're going to, for the first time in this recording, understand how big a concern it is. The price tag of the recon, $1.75 trillion. The price tag of the recon is not $400 trillion. What's $400 trillion? If the programs go 20, 30 years, well, they're not supposed to go 20, 30 years. That's exactly the point. The deal the Democrats made for the recon are 1, 2, 3-year programs. Most of them are 1-year programs. But the legislation, the draft that went to the subcommittee of the House Rules Committee from Nancy Pelosi, written by the president's team, and then sent over to look at, for the senators to take a look over the weekend. They looked at it, and Joe Manchin says, you're not going to trick words with me. I know words very well. These are programs you've teed up to have them renew so that they're on the books for 10, 20, 30 years. I'm agreeing to 1 to 2 years for these programs. I'm not agreeing to 30 years of these programs. So the recon is not 1.75. It's $200, $300 trillion. Yeah, you did hear me right. $300 trillion, not $3 trillion, $300 trillion. So I first was recording this last weekend. Was Joe watching me? Maybe he was. I said there's something going wrong here because I kept on seeing the word permanent when I knew the programs were not permanent. Let's go over the writings. These writings are published by broadcast media, but they're coming from also the help of the White House. So my messaging over the weekend is still my messaging today. Who put these words in here? The White House or the broadcast media? I'm starting to think the White House did, which is not what the Democrats agreed to. Universal pre-kindergarten, 1 year, 3 to 4 year olds. This would be a check to you for 1 year for pre-kindergarten, not 20 years of this. Then the CTC, not 20 years of CTC or 30 years, 1 year, $3,600 or $3,000 depending on the age of the child. Now here's initial concern, and this jumped right off the page. It says on this page, eligibility up to $150,000 annual salary. What? No one agreed to $150,000. The agreement is to keep it where it is right now, which is $80,000 or $60,000. I saw they were trying to get to 110. They couldn't get it. No one said to 150. So this was a cause of concern. But if that was not obvious, if that was not enough red flag for Joe Manchin or myself, I had the red flag over the weekend. It's this sentence. Listen carefully to the sentence. Permanently improving Medicaid to include home care services for seniors and people with disabilities. No. Permanently? No. The program is 1 to 2 years. Remember earlier in this video where I said they wanted $250 billion. They couldn't do it, so they brought it to sub like 175 billion. That's 1 or 2 years. Permanently. It's not a permanent change to Medicare. Permanent. You want to do this for 20 years? Let's do it for 10 years. It's going to be about $175 billion. You do it for 20 years. It's going to be $400 billion. Yes, so someone is inserting these language in this recon, and I believe it's now the White House, and that's why Joe Manchin was not happy on Monday. I was unhappy on Saturday when I saw the language. It doesn't make sense. Hearing care services covered by Medicaid. All right, here we go. So here's some other provisions. $150 billion for affordable housing. This includes rehab, construction, improvements for more than 1 million homes. This is what I talked about earlier in this video. Checks to you for those low-income community. There'll be checks to my college students of $550 of checks for Pell's Grant recipients. You'll get an additional $550. And then if you have a child, you'll get $65 checks per month if while the kid is not in school, and while the kid is in school, free school meals. Then, what provisions could still be going in there beyond the ones I talked about earlier in this recording? Checks to you for dental and checks to you for vision. Bernie Sanders on Friday said 3 things. He said that people are being ripped off by pharmaceutical. We need to fix that. They did. We're paying too much in the country. They fixed that. And then finally, that people do not have teeth in their mouth and they cannot see. So let's go over these provisions right now. They got hearing in there, but if you look at the 3, what do they look like? Dental, most expensive, then hearing, cheaper, and then vision, the cheapest. Why did they not get vision in there? Not particularly clear. Vision vouchers are very commonplace. $50 for a vision eye exam per year, $100 for eyeglasses, $150 checks to you, direct checks right to you, direct checks to you for vision. Very, very easy to get in there. First, it would be very cheap because it only had $150. Second, it would help a lot of people, all people on Medicare. So vision is a very common thing that people need help with. It makes no sense not to get it in there. Probably will only be about $120 billion. Not particularly clear why it's not in there. We go to hearing. They got hearing aids in there. So that hearing aid either will be a voucher or just it'll be paid for through your copay, through your insurance. And that would be upwards of $300 for people on hearing. But the dental, also not clear. Why is that gone? They're originally going to do dental for 10 years. President Biden and Joe and Bernie Sanders wanted 10 years. Then they got down to 3 years. Then they were going to do it for vouchers of $850 checks directly to you. It's actually a check to you of $850 per year for dental. I say it's not enough. I mean, it's a starting point, but it's not enough. It's like half a tooth. But again, that would be an $850 check to you if you're on Medicare for dental services per year. And then suddenly gone, removed. So I don't think when looking at the situation, it's going to stay this way anytime soon. Who's the opponent? We now know the opponent is Joe Manchin. Not particularly clear why. But if we look at the three provisions, hey, you can get $150 checks to Americans on Medicare for vision per year. You can get them $800 checks for dental per year. That's not a big call, not particularly difficult. What's Joe Manchin's opposition to it? He says Medicare is going under. Why give more money to Medicare? No, I don't think that logic works, and I think it will happen. All right, now let's go to the nuances of where my notes do not line up with broadcast media, and go over a little bit more about those programs right now. Programs in, programs out. We're going to start with, again, what I said with that child tax credit. Let's go more into that detail. Broadcast media saying $150,000 or less, you get a $3,600 check next year for that child, approximately. I don't see that. My notes show they made it the same as where it is now, $60,000 or less. They tried to negotiate up to $110,000. I don't see they got it on $150,000. Again, the Pell's grant, if you're a college student, you're going to get $550 checks direct to you if you're on Pell's already. Community college out. Then dental vision hearing we just went over. Let's go over the paid leave. Let's go over the calculation of this. So the paid leave, they were originally going to do this 12 weeks for anyone of all walks of life, whether you're self-employed or gig worker or W-2 or of any income level as well. That's a lot of money. 12 weeks, let's say $1,700. That's, that's almost $10,000 of checks to you. That was going to be expensive. Over a decade, $500 billion. Then they dropped it to 4 weeks for low-income people only, and only W-2s. $100 billion, very cheap. I mean, $100 billion is very, very cheap. They can get that in there, not a problem whatsoever. How much would that pay? What are the numbers like that? That would pay something like up to four times, approximately $800 a week, or a little bit less. And so, that's $2,000-$3,000 if you have to stay home because your wife is pregnant, or you have to stay home because a medical concern. I think they can get it in there. I don't think it's much of a stretch whatsoever. Then childcare, they got that in there. Clean energy out. They got health insurance cheaper across the board. They got that in there. Viewers have been asking me about that. Housing aid. Oh boy, is this exciting. If you've been with this channel over the last year, you see me get viewers $250,000 last year for second stimulus rent assistance. Now this year, we've gotten millions of dollars. I'll be going over more of that third stimulus in just seconds, coming back on this channel. But third stimulus for rent was $47 billion. Fourth stimulus for housing aid, which includes more than just rent, will be $175 billion. It's huge. It's a big win for you. And in-home healthcare, yes, that's $100 to $200 billion. All right. More about that in a second, and my opinion of the situation. But now let's turn to student loan debt. More student loan debt could be forgiven. The president, by executive order, not by recall, could forgive $10,000. Why? He made the offer. Democrats should take it. The president has offered to do, by executive order, a forgiveness of $10,000 of student loan debt across the map for all students. This is after he forgave 3 rounds before that. First, he forgave student loan debts for individuals who became disabled after graduation. He forgave student loan debts for individuals who went to work in the nonprofit sector after graduation. And finally, he forgave student loan debts for people who went to work in the public sector 10 years after graduation. So the next step, $10,000, the Democrats should take it. It's not the end all be all. They can ask for more later on. Then COLA raises. Yes. Have you gotten that letter? The letter from Social Security says your benefits are going up 5.9% next year. That's if you're on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, railroad benefits, veterans benefits. But get ready for fifth stimulus. Fifth stimulus comes right behind fourth stimulus. And guess what? They're already thinking about fifth stimulus for exactly because of what happened last night with the wins by Democrats in some governor's races. And the notion of fifth stimulus is teed up for the midterm elections. John Yarmouth says, force the Republicans to vote against it for the midterms. I don't see the downside. It's very popular legislation. What would involve? Raising your benefits up if you're on SSI, SSDI, Social Security, railroad benefits, one additional step after this. Then applying a new benchmark next December. The new benchmark's inflation. So let's do the analysis. First, your benefit's going to raise up this amount, then they'll raise it up again, and then a new benchmark next December. They're going to remove the asset cap, remove the income cap, and remove the marriage penalty. Finally, if you haven't become a member, what are you doing? The membership newsletter comes out Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time via the YouTube alert system and the LALATE alert system. It features all the big money under first, second, and third stimulus that you can get. And here we go. Let's go back into third stimulus, which is coming back on the channel with some success stories overnight. I asked viewers to tell me your success stories you've had with third stimulus in just the last few days. Yes, just the last few days. And I love Nicole's message. Why do I like it? Because it shows you she worked outside the box. She went a little bit broader than I even cover on this channel. What did she get? Here's Nicole. Hey, my family and I had time today, so actually over the last couple of weeks, I wanted to share with you that there's still a lot of money for third stimulus, and we got some. We got $1,500 from a local nonprofit, plus Christmas assistance for our children, plus $5,000 paid for our delinquent medical bills, plus $10,000 for SNAP at least, plus $7,000 of pandemic relief for rent and utilities. Thank you so much for everything you've done and continue to do. You are a breath of fresh air and a blessing to all of us. Forever grateful. Very, very kind. And then Mark, you've met Mark many, many times over the last few months. He got an additional round of utilities, a new round, $19,500, and got his SNAP lifted to $28,000. Get a pen and paper ready. We're going to go over the big sums of money you can get right now, starting with the rent. You have gotten rent before on this channel, you can get another round. If you haven't gotten rent before, you can get it today. We're going over third stimulus right now. And third stimulus, the average viewer on this channel has gotten $45,000. If you've not seen that type of money, today is your day to change it because third stimulus is still paying out. Let's go over the money for third stimulus, starting with the rent. Viewers of this channel for rent, we're looking at this type of money about 2 months ago. This is what they were getting for rent. Now they're getting upwards of $40,000. Why? Because people are able to go back and get multiple rounds of rent. I have most viewers getting 3 rounds at this point. A few have gotten 4. And where do you get that rent? Here you go. You're going to reach out to your city hall, your city house authority, your county hall, your county house authority, your state hall, and your state house authority. And the keywords you can say are rent assistance because of COVID, mortgage or utility assistance because of COVID. You want to read the LA newsletter as a member that mentions the Treasury allocation of $13 billion more. Learn about that before you make the phone call because that's the latest round of rent that's gone out. Then you want to get to utilities. And you want to keep on getting rounds. So if you got a round before, get a new round. Here's Mark. See, Mark, this was about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago. He got $6,500 for his utilities. He got another round of utilities, and this time he got $19,500. His brother-in-law got $18,000. You want to get money for SNAP. SNAP is money for food. And where do you get that money for SNAP? From Department of Agriculture. And how much money does it pay? It paid Mark's brother-in-law $26,000 per year. And now Mark, according to his update today, is getting $28,000. So imagine over the next 10 years, because of this channel, Mark's family will get $280,000 because they watch this channel. Next, you want to get multiple sums. So you want to keep on calling. You don't want to call 2 places and stop. And you saw with the great message from our new input from Nicole. She called all these different places. You want to get multiple sums, and that's how Lorraine got to $120,000. And what's important to understand is that if you got rounds before, get new rounds. How do you learn about all this? In the LALATE newsletter. Become a member today. The link is under the video. And get that LALATE newsletter delivered Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time from me to you. Features all the big money under first, second, and third stimulus. When third stimulus became law, people said $1,400 stimulus check. Not me. I said $15,000. There are $15,000 of checks across third stimulus you can get. Average viewer of this channel now to date has got an average of $45,000, and many viewers have gotten far in excess of $100,000 of checks from third stimulus programs. When fourth stimulus becomes law, it'll pay you about $15,000 at the moment, but we're going to watch that because it could be more than that even as well. And as soon as it becomes law, I'm going to show you how to get all these particular checks across these 3 clusters as well. We got a big day with recordings. We have Mornings Crypto live on air right after this, coming up in just 2 minutes at 10 a.m. Then 11 a.m., I'm back live with you with a brand new noontime, direct and live from Santa Monica. Then we got the 1 o'clock afternoon show, the brand new Afternoons LA show at 3 o'clock, and a brand new Evenings LA. The news cycle is changing by the hour and on the hour. Finally, my commentary. We saw a lot of developments happen overnight, and those developments showed the importance of getting the recon to the finish line. And one of the things that certainly looks slightly different in today's recording is the notion of calling the vote on a recon if the recon is not done. Why is this important, and who is saying this? Bernie Sanders. Here's a new series of quotes from Bernie Sanders. He says, the issue ultimately is whether Senator Manchin chooses to vote for the legislation or vote against. We're going to have a vote for yes, or he's going to have to vote no. This has dragged on long enough, and it's time to get to the floor for a vote. If people want to vote against it, they have that right. What is Bernie Sanders ironically doing? He's ironically calling people's bluff. And we actually saw Bernie Sanders often fold as a lawn chair in 2020. Who is he calling a bluff for? Everyone. For example, Gothenheimer, the SALT group, the goth gang, saying they're going to vote against the recon in the House unless there's salt in there. Fine, call the vote. Let's just see you do it. I don't believe you are. The people who say they're going to vote against the recon unless paid leave is in there. Fine, call for a vote on the House side. I don't think you are. I'm calling your bluff. Then we go to the Senate side. The senators who said they're going to vote against it unless, paid leave is out, says Joe Manchin. Go ahead. I want to see you do it. Why? Because a new report out today says, and this is great news, Mancina is over. What's Mancina? Manchin Sinema. It says that Kristen Sinema, and I was reporting this slightly over the last 2 days, Kristen Sinema is done. She has now agreed to everything on the recon. She is no longer an impediment. She is no longer a blockade. She is no longer resistance. Those days ended Wednesday night last week. I told you that Wednesday night phone call from the president was the most important date of this entire recon. When he got that achievement done, everything snowballed very quickly. So she's ready to support the rest of the recon. The only person potentially at issue is Joe Manchin. But if you've been with this channel for long enough, if you've seen Joe Manchin over the last 10 years, he often sees legislation, says, and when it's called for a vote, he votes in favor of it. That's why people are saying, goth gang, SALT group, paid leave people, call the vote, let's see you vote against it, because I don't think you are. And there you go. It's incredible, and it's a very fluid situation, and I know it may seem strange to call vote on something that's not ready on the House side, but we'll have all these details and more. The situation is very fluid, and yes, traditionally Nancy Pelosi has called votes on Thursday nights. That's her date to call things, usually on votes. So we're going to see in the next 24 hours how fluid the situation is, if we do see a vote on the recon Thursday night or not on the House side. And with that, subscribe. 400,000 subscribers is a YouTube record. I want you part of this incredible family. Hit that subscribe button right now. Like the video, 2,000-3,000 likes, and consider becoming a member. Coming up next is Mornings Crypto, live on air in just 5 minutes at 10 a.m. Stay informed, stay focused, and stay with LA for more.